Donald Trump's special envoy Steve Whitcoff made a new proposal on Ukraine today. And, this just doesn't fit into any framework at all. The special representative of the American president, Steve Whitcoff, called to accept Moscow's terms and proposed to organize negotiations between the Ukrainian and Russian delegations at a technical level to prepare a meeting between Putin, Zelensky, and Trump in a trilateral format. And this is despite the fact that Donald Trump himself assured that he had already agreed with Putin on a meeting with Zelensky and later gave Putin another 2 weeks to make a decision. The 2 weeks end on Monday. But Whitcoff is asking for a couple more weeks for Putin to hold a few more rounds of negotiations on the Kremlin's instructions, supposedly to organize a meeting between Putin and Zelensky. And Whitcoff stated this today after meeting with the head of the office of the President of Ukraine, Andriy Yermak, in New York. Well, as they say, the puzzle is coming together here. After all, today Zelensky stated that the Kremlin will continue to stall with impunity since Putin has already received something from the Americans. And that's why all of Donald Trump's deadlines are meaningless. And most importantly, it is the Kremlin that insists that before organizing a meeting between Putin and Zelensky, it is worth holding a few more meaningless meetings of the delegations for coordination. Whitcoff's agendas are not against it, but very much in favor. My name is Alexei Pesci. Today is August 29th on the calendar. Next, everything in order. But before we start, I ask you to subscribe to this channel, leave a like, write any comment, and be sure to subscribe to my Telegram channel, Pesci News. The link to it is in the description of this video. So I'll start this episode with official statements. The head of the office of the President of Ukraine, Andriy Yermak, met in New York with the special representative of the United States President, Steve Whitcoff. According to the head of the office of the President of Ukraine, the meeting was also attended by the First Deputy Minister of Foreign Affairs of Ukraine, Serhiy Kyslytsya. Next is a long quote from Yermak. The main priority is to promote real diplomacy and ensure the implementation of all agreements reached at the Washington summit. We are coordinating our efforts. At the beginning of the meeting, I informed the President's special representative about the war crimes that Russia is committing against the peaceful cities of Ukraine. In particular, we talked about the strike on Kyiv, which killed 23 people, including 4 children. The Russian Federation is not doing what is necessary to end the war and is prolonging the hostilities. Ukraine supports the desire of President Donald Trump and all partners to achieve a just peace as soon as possible and also welcomes all peace initiatives. But Russia is blocking all of this. We are open to direct negotiations at the leaders' level and are ready to discuss the widest range of issues. We believe that global pressure is necessary for Russia to truly be ready to move toward peace and in particular to hold critically important meetings of leaders for this purpose. And this is exactly where the real surprise begins. Here, as they say, watch closely. Zelensky said today that the war between Russia and Ukraine will end one way or another and Putin isn't going anywhere. Then he is quoted as saying, the war will end anyway, Putin isn't going anywhere. You can still find reasons. Not now, no denazification, illegitimacy of the government, and so on. But still, these reasons mean nothing. No one in the world supports them. For the world, Russia remains the aggressor. Moscow is to blame for the war, and it is the one that must end the war. It will happen anyway. One way or another, the war will end. Next, Zelensky states that Russia will not do everything now to avoid a meeting between the leaders, Putin and Zelensky, because they have already received something from the Americans. Another quote from Zelensky, the Russians will do everything to avoid meeting. In my opinion, they have already received something because they had a meeting with the United States of America. If the meeting had been proposed right away, it would have been a trilateral one, and there would have been more chances for a trilateral meeting before this bilateral track between America. And now the very same Kremlin press secretary, Dmitry Peskov, is speaking today and says that before holding a meeting between Putin and Zelensky, several more negotiations need to be held at the technical level between the delegations of Ukraine and Russia, which could last for months. Here's a question. Listen, Russians, why didn't you demand such technical consultations before the meeting between Putin and Trump? Is this all just an excuse? But the paradox is that after today's meeting with Yermak, Trump's representative Steve Whitcoff stated that the United States is proposing to organize negotiations first. Ongoing technical negotiations between Ukraine and Russia for preparation. A meeting of the leaders in a trilateral format between Trump, Zelensky, and Putin. That is, Whitcoff is essentially repeating the thesis voiced by the Kremlin. Moreover, as it turned out, the very purpose of Whitcoff's meeting with Yermak today in New York was precisely to persuade the Ukrainian side to agree to those very technical negotiations ahead of a possible trilateral summit. If negotiations between the Ukrainian and Russian delegations take place, they will have to cover issues of territories, security guarantees, and other topics, as well as pave the way for higher-level discussions. Such a process could last for months while the bloody war continues. And the whole paradox is that Whitcoff, for example, suggests discussing security guarantees for Ukraine with the Russians at a technical level. Well, what do those unwashed Russians have to do with it at all? And here I'll quote the words of the president of Ukraine, Volodymyr. He outlined 3 key blocks of security guarantees for Ukraine. The first block concerns the army, maintaining the current number of military personnel and providing them with weapons thanks to Ukrainian, European, and American production. The second block concerns NATO. This refers to agreements with partners at the leadership level regarding their readiness to support Ukraine in the event of new aggression. The third block is about sanctions against Russia and the use of frozen Russian assets for armament. So, where is Russia's participation in these 3 blocks? According to Whitcoff, this is what we're meant to discuss with unwashed Russia. Well, which of these 3 blocks are we supposed to discuss on a technical level with some Mudinskis? Or something else. Zelensky says Ukraine needs legally binding security guarantees from key European countries and the United States of America, not another Budapest memorandum. What is there to discuss with the Russians? And that's even though another 2-week deadline from Donald Trump for dictator Putin ends this Monday. And today Zelensky said that it's time for Trump to finally answer for his words. Quote, Zelensky says, "Each of us must be responsible for what we say and what we are ready for. We are waiting for some strong steps from the United States towards Russia because they offered it to us and we agreed to it, but Russia still hasn't agreed." On Monday, the so-called 2 to 3 weeks of Trump expire, which the United States president set for Russia as a deadline to decide whether to agree to a bilateral or trilateral meeting. The 2 weeks will end on Monday, and we will remind everyone about it. End of quote from President Zelensky, so I'll put an ellipsis here. Share your opinions and conclusions in the comments below this episode, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell, and don't forget to like. That's all for now. Take care. Goodbye, everyone.